The search for America's best cake decorators is on.
Okay. It's too quiet. The tiered cake I'm doing for the competition is just a fun, sparkly girls' night out cake. The theme I'm going for with the whole competition is girls' night out all the way through. So we're gonna start with just a fun, wild zebra print, lots of pink, sparkles, a couple of high heels, just have a lot of fun with it.
For the tiered cake, I'm going to be doing a black iced cake with some zebra stripes on it. I'm going to ice it in black, which is not something that you see very often, mostly because it's kind of messy on the teeth, but sometimes that's worth it to have a really cool cake. It's hard to work with dark colors because I'm kind of a messy decorator anyways. My work is really clean, but my work area can get kind of messy. So I'll end up with it on my apron or my hands or, on other things that it shouldn't be.
I'm going to make a two-tiered pillow-shaped cake. I'm going to do some carving, cover the whole thing in fondant, and then use accents using alcohol and the gold luster dust, as well as some fondant cutouts. I just like doing pillow cakes. I think they're cool. They can be used in a lot of different ways. Not terribly nervous about doing it all, just anxious to get going.
I'm planning on making a tiered cake that has a smaller bottom tier and then a really tall second tier on it. I'm hand painting kind of a almost leaded glass design onto it and then coming back in with black and some wood grain elements and even a little piping.
This is one of the tricks you can use. I just kind of mist the cake with water and then give it, almost like you're polishing it, a really light, smooth. I think what will be most difficult about my tiered cake is just getting the icing smooth. I probably won't have the time that I would really like to get it as smooth as I would like.
I just use a spray bottle of water. It just helps smooth out the icing. Everybody's got their own little thing they do for smoothing the icing. I just happen to use the spray bottle. It's what I was trained with. The technique is not unusual to me. I see a lot of people do it, but some people still stick with some of the old methods where they're dipping the spatula in hot water, and some people let the icing set up and then use what they call a paper towel method, and that's just too slow for me.
I'm going to show some newbies out there how to get a faux fondant finish on their buttercream. The really old technique, just using a Viva paper towel. And you do have to have a crusting buttercream to do it. You just go over it a couple different times. I go over with my hand first, and then I'll actually use a fondant smoother to make sure my sides are really straight. But it knocks down everything. You still want to get your buttercream a little smooth, as smooth as you can with your spatula, but make sure it's all level. Looks good to me. So I got my cake all nice and smoothed. I'm really happy with how smooth it is. I spent a little more time than I would like to have on it, but I think I'm still doing okay.
Generally, it's safer to have a lot of extra fondant. You can cut it off before you're done covering the cake, but it's so much better to have too much instead of too little. And what I usually do when I'm planning for a cake is kind of make a disc that's the same diameter as the cake and usually about like an inch thick, and then I know for sure that I'll have enough fondant to cover what I need. To avoid having ridges or bunching at the bottom, I just really try and take my time and smooth it as I go down. So instead of just completely bunching at the bottom, you just really want to gently push it down. You have to use a little muscle to get your cake to look nice sometimes. I'm really worried about the cake kind of crumbling or losing its shape. If I put the two supports in the middle, it's really gonna give me the support I need. This top cake is pretty heavy, so you don't want it collapsing.
I usually always do the zebra stripes with the white base and then put black stripes on it. Just thought I would do it opposite today for a different effect. I never get too technical with cakes. In fact, I would rather not do a wedding cake that's super precise and has to be perfect. I would rather do the groom's cake, because the groom's cakes are fun and usually over the top, and you can, have more fun with it, and they don't have to be perfect. There's less stress with it too. I think I'm gonna get done on time.
I roll my fondant super, super thin. If you roll your fondant really thin, the way it lays on the cake doesn't look like it's like this thick image sticking off of it. It almost blends in a little bit more. It almost gives you the look of it being painted on. One of the things I don't like seeing on cakes is really thick, heavy designs of the fondant. One, it's a waste of fondant. You don't need that much fondant on there. And two, if you're doing a buttercream cake and you try to put a real heavy, thick piece of fondant on there, it's gonna slide off eventually. This is gonna be close right here. I'm not sure if I've just misjudged my time and the fondant and stuff. I actually thought I would be a lot further along just having the zebra print itself on with all the other elements I wanna get on the cake. So I'm a little nervous right now.
I usually have to stand on a step stool because I'm short. And then that way I can get a little more pressure on the fondant and get it consistent all the way across. When I airbrush, I like to layer in colors. My original color is the blue, but the final color is going to be purple. But this just gives it a little bit more depth, a little more character. I think the trick to airbrushing is just to get in there and do it. I know a lot of people that are very intimidated by airbrush, and it's really not that difficult. The airbrushing is going fine. I've never had any trouble with it. I kind of grew up using the airbrush, so it's never been an intimidating factor.
So now's the fun part. I kind of like it black and white, but I'm going to add a lot of color to it with the airbrush. This is kind of a fun technique to do. Part of the reason that I did the background black was so I could put all my fondant stuff on it in white and then go back with color. I've never taken any classes for cake decorating. I don't really know if this is the right way to do it or not. I've just kind of learned from other decorators that I've worked with. I've learned a lot from them, but a lot of it is just self-taught and trying things out. So I don't know if this is the best way to do it or the correct way to do it, but it works out.
I'm doing a lot of hand painting. That's really one of my, stronger skills as a decorator. So that's really what I'm focusing on. I'm going to use kind of a stained glass hand painted technique. I use a lot of petal dust and then a little vodka to just loosen it up a little. We live on the prairie and I love sunflowers, so why not go with Kansas? I don't always like having a front or back to the cake. I think it's really beautiful to have a cake that's complete that you can view from any part of a room. Halfway through the two-tier, I'm really feeling the pressure to get the paint on. It's definitely not as fine as I would like to have it, but I think at this point just having everything on the cake is what's important to me.
For time's sake and the idea that I would deliver this cake myself, I'm going to use straws. A lot of people use straws, but I don't care to use them on anything heavier than what this is, but this will work. I'm struggling a little bit with the time and making it look good. You know, you can't have speed and time and quality all the time at once. One's got to give, and it's usually the time. I don't want to run out of time and have an incomplete project.
Okay, front of my cake, bow on. The cake looks a little messy right now. I've got some cornstarch all over the place. Black is really hard to hide the cornstarch and stuff on, but I've got a little trick up my sleeve. I'm going to clean that all up and it's going to look nice and pretty. Usually I use just some alcohol. I'm actually going to use water, believe it or not. Especially with the black, this is going to make it shiny. It's going to knock all the cornstarch off on it. Okay, last thing we're going to do after we've got it all shined up and everything is we got to get some of this edible glitter on here. I like to put it in my hand with my brush and fling it on there. It helps me control how much I use because, man, this stuff is expensive, but you can never have too much glitter on a cake.
I decided to write on the board instead of write on the cake. I do that sometimes just to let the cake speak for itself. This is Rainbow Twinkle Dust, and it's just kind of a really fine glitter that's super sparkly, and I love it, and I usually go overboard with it. So I'm going to stop. In just a minute, I'm going to stop.
Having the gold come through the buttercream and making it still look shiny, it used to be more tedious where you had to pipe it in with royal icing in plain white and then go back and paint very slowly all around the edges of the piping, and it was very tedious work. Where now you just paint the inside of the bag with the gold mixed with olive oil or regular vegetable oil and then put in the icing like we used to do to stripe the bags. It's kind of an old technique mixed with some of the new products, so that's cool. Part of the trick is squeezing the bag slowly enough that the gold will pick up on the icing. If you squeeze too fast, you end up with white.
Right now I'm marking up the fondant with a knife just to give that wood grain effect so that when I paint it, it'll kind of go into all these cracks and really become wood. My time management has gone better than I expected. That's been my major concern throughout all of this.
Done.
I'm excited. There was a couple other embellishments I might have considered adding in looking back afterwards, but overall I think I got everything in I planned to do. I like my tiered cake. I think it turned out very well.
I'm happy with the final result of the tiered cake. I think it's fun, it's bright. I think that I used all my time wisely. If anything, I would have spent more time at the beginning smoothing and with the structure of it, but I did okay on the time that I had.
I'm happy with the cake. I'm just glad I finished in time. Really, I just did the best I could, so I don't think I can have any complaints or, go back and say I changed this because it's an hour. It's a really short amount of time, so I did what I could in the time I had.
I am really happy with the way my cake turned out. It's everything, incorporates all the fun girls' night out. The sparkly, the fun zebra print, the pink. It's got a couple little high heels on it and stuff, but yeah, it looks clean. It's a pretty cake.